Good afternoon, and welcome to the San Francisco Psychedelic Society. Coming at you live in your living room, bedroom, wherever you are in the world, your car. I'm Danielle. I'm the executive director of San Francisco Psychedelic Society, and I am bringing on my dear friend Adam here, Adam Bram of the Microdosing movement. Welcome, Adam. Today we are doing a live Q&A with our incredible audience. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And this is our opportunity to ask us anything about. Oh, I love you guys. Welcome everyone. And please ask us anything about microdosing. And welcome, Adam. Thanks so much, Adam, for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, you are golden.
Beautiful. Well, let's do this.
Sweet. So just waiting on our community to ask us anything and about microdosing. And in the meantime, welcome everyone. If you're new to the Psychedelic Society, it's an honor to have you here. I'm here with Adam Bram, who is our incredible facilitator of the Microdosing Support Network. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about the Microdosing Support Network and the work that we're doing together?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks to the more than 35 people that are joining us here today so far. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to have the second meeting of the Microdosing Support Network. That is a free donation-based support network where we like to build community around microdosing. We like to create a safe space for people to share their personal stories, good or bad, as well as be able to ask people like myself and others questions on their personal experiences with microdosing. So we are one of the first, if not the first, free microdosing support network out there, and we think it is so very important to get this conversation going and get more and more people talking and educated on the amazing subject of microdosing.
Thank you so much for your service to the Psychedelic Society and to our community at large. It's just such an incredible offering that we have, and we're getting people from all around the world that are joining us to share how microdosing is going and ask questions to the experts and ask questions to the experts in the community. You know, we become experts of our own lives and our own situations as we dedicate ourselves to this healing process. So just a deep bow of gratitude to you for that. And how often is this group happening?
This group happens every other week, so twice a month this group is happening, and it is absolutely an amazing community. We had such a great meeting last week. Again, the really important thing with microdosing is we haven't been able to do a bunch of clinical trials, right? So all of the evidence that we're basing this off of is from personal experience. And so this has a lot to do with bringing community together and hearing people's personal experiences. So it is my honor to be here today to be able to answer any questions that people might have about microdosing. So please, as Danielle and I continue to allow you to come in to Instagram Live today, don't forget to ask your questions in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them as we see them.
Awesome. So let's get started. We're getting a lot of questions in. So many people know microdosing as, you know, small doses that are creating big changes in many people's lives. Let's start with the first question around lemon tech. For those that aren't familiar with lemon tech, Adam, can you describe a little bit about lemon tech and its benefits for microdosing?
Yeah, so I am by no means an expert on lemon tech and microdosing. So what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to tell you from my own personal experience. The one time I did lemon tech at microdosing, it amplified the microdose. So I think the important thing to remember with lemon tech or vitamin C in general is has the ability to amplify the microdose. And again, if you're trying to keep your microdose subperceptual or you're not trying to get too high, then I'm not sure lemon tech is great for microdosing. Lemon tech might be great more so for mini to medium to macro dosing. But for those people that want to feel maybe they need a little bit more energy and they want to experiment with lemon tech and microdosing, I have to say the whole microdosing movement, the whole community is about civilian science. So you have to go out there and you have to find what's best for yourself. A lot of people love lemon tech, so I definitely can't speak negatively about lemon tech. I know for me that the lemon tech amplified the microdose, made it a little bit more than a microdose, more of a mini dose. But again, I think lemon tech is a great tool to amplify your medium to larger doses of psilocybin as well.
Yeah, and thank you to speaking to that it works specifically on psilocybin. And, in terms of amplification, microdosing can be known to be a non-specific amplifier. Can you speak a little bit to the benefits of microdosing and how microdosing might be an amplifier?
Yeah, microdosing has been known to improve mood, improve energy, improve people's thought pattern. In my opinion, I think it kind of deactivates the default mode network and puts people more into a present moment, more of a flow state. So I think there are so many benefits to microdosing that I really couldn't list them. But again, this is all personal to the individual, right? Everybody might see different benefits to microdosing. So I can only speak to the benefits that I've seen personally. And I know in my own personal experience that microdose helped me overcome 39 plus years of an addiction to misery and of depression. And this is definitely on a different level than cannabis, which was another tool and aid that I had been working with for years. The use of psilocybin, microdosing specifically, really allowed me to dive into my wounds and really deal with them, really change my habitual thought patterns of thinking negatively, really rewire my brain, and allow me to do things like exercise and get more disciplined in my life, more focus. So microdosing, I think, has a ton of benefits. What I think is amazing about microdosing is anytime we hold these support networks or these communities, we ask people, we'd love to hear your negative stories to microdosing too. So if there's anybody listening today that has negative experiences with microdosing, please put those in the chat as well. We'd love to hear them. The fascinating thing for me is the majority of the time, like I would say upwards of 90%, microdosing is having a positive benefit for people, at least the people I personally have worked with.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Your story definitely inspires many others, and you help people just through your personal experience and the coaching that you do. I personally have too have found such benefit for addiction, not only to misery and suffering, but addiction to pharmaceuticals. I used microdosing as a way to heal myself from the debilitating withdrawals that I experienced when I was getting off of psychiatric drugs. It was just, there was nothing out there to help people in the withdrawal process, help people in the taper process. And microdosing mushrooms was extremely helpful to heal a lot of the pain and suffering that I experienced. And it was definitely a tool to get me back on my feet after being so debilitated from getting off those psychiatric drugs and dealing with addiction. Something that's also been interesting with microdosing is how different LSD and mushrooms can be, how they both have beneficial properties to them. And can you speak to a little bit how, I know that you have recently started exploring more with the Albert Hoffman medicine. Can you speak to what you see and the differences are between psilocybin and LSD microdosing?
Yeah, thanks. So again, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience here, and I'm referencing myself. For the last couple of years, I've been working specifically with psilocybin, and I think psilocybin microdosing is an incredible tool for mental health and addiction, for helping people taper off of pharmaceuticals and stronger drugs, for helping people with alcoholism. So microdosing is an absolutely amazing tool that we should definitely start using in mental health. Can you remind me of the question again? I got.
Yeah, we got a question earlier about, what is the difference between, from your experience,
Right.
LSD and mushrooms?
So I was the mushroom guy. The last 2 weeks, I have been microdosing LSD, and it has absolutely been amazing as well. And I think that what I've noticed is LSD is an amazing tool when microdosed for focus, for getting shit done, for creativity, for energy. It's been amazing when I've gone out and played soccer. Absolutely next level to the point where everybody on the field is asking me if I'm on some kind of other substance. So the LSD is amazing for task-oriented things, for focus, for coding, for journalism, for writing, for so many different things, right? And what I've seen with psilocybin is the psilocybin microdosing has been more for healing, interpersonal work, depression. And don't get me wrong, the LSD can do the same things, but I've seen both of these substances do something where they shut the brain off, they shut off that default mode network, and they put you into the present moment. They lock you into that now, into flow state. And that's what's so priceless because we're spending so much of our time in those negative areas of our brain. So big differences I've seen personally is the psilocybin is more for interpersonal, for feelings, for maybe help with addiction, interpersonal work, and the LSD for me has been great for performance, for anything from athletics. Psilocybin's also great with athletics. They're just both amazing tools, and they can both help with so many different things.
Absolutely. And I love what you're saying more about how, it's different for each person. And this is from your own personal experience. And what might work for you might be completely different for other people. From my experience too, I had something similar with the mushrooms. I felt like the mushrooms were a lot more of an internal experience, and sometimes it'd be more of an amplifier of different emotions I was having or things that were going on in my internal consciousness. And the LSD was more of an outward facing experience. It helped me get things done. It helped with productivity. It helped with focus. The LSD tends to be a little bit more consistent, whereas the mushrooms would amplify more of the emotions I was having. And I think it's really important for people to find out what works for them. What might work for us might be different from other people. And can you speak a little bit to the dosaging? Because there's some questions that are coming in about dosaging. And welcome everyone. If you're new to this live, this is a talk about microdosing, and drop your questions in the chat if you have any overall questions about microdosing. The dosaging can be quite different from LSD and psilocybin, and although the protocols that they both follow there can be similarities in those. Can you speak to a little bit about what are common dosaging for, let's start with mushrooms.
So for psilocybin, the idea of microdose is anywhere from 0.05 to upwards, I would probably say zero point 0.3 of a gram. So that's 50 milligrams to 300 milligrams. I've heard Dr. Fadiman say that a microdose is anywhere from 0.1 to 0.4. I think upwards of 0.3 to 0.4 is not really, for most people, a subperceptual dose with psilocybin, so I tend to lower that a little bit. As well, everybody is unique. Some people are super, super sensitive to psilocybin, so that's where we start the scale at 50 milligrams. So again, much like everybody with microdosing is different and they need to find a unique substance that works for them, they also need to find a unique dosage that works for them. So again, there's not one dosage that works for everyone. 50 milligrams might be enough for me, but 150 milligrams might be the dose for somebody else. So again, that's why it's important that people are civilian scientists and they experiment, they take their journal, they log the difference between different size dosage on different days, and they really try and find out what is that perfect subperceptual dose.
Absolutely. I just want to give a shout out to our friends at the Microdosing Institute are in the house here in the chat. So just a big welcome to the Microdosing Institute and a deep bow of gratitude to them for their work and their collaboration with the microdosing movement. They also are running a microdosing support network with us, and that is on Tuesdays as well. I believe it was this Tuesday morning, or at least 11 a.m. Pacific time, and in the evening in the Netherlands. So they're hosting a European microdosing support network, and they are huge collaborators in this movement and have been doing extensive, important work. So thank you to the Microdosing Institute. Everyone give them a follow, as well as follow Hummingbird Medicinals on Instagram. So back to the dosaging question. Can you speak a little bit to the dosaging for LSD?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to iPsychonaut. Ian as well is out there, and he put in the chat something that's really important to remember. And as we're educating people in the coming years with psychedelics, we got to have like really catchy sayings, right? So obviously start low and go slow. Anytime you're microdosing or trying any kind of psychedelic, it's really good to start low and go slow, right? You can always eat more, but with psychedelics or cannabis edibles, you can't eat less. So again, you really want to go slow. And again, with LSD, in my past, where I've struggled to microdose properly was in the dosing of LSD. So LSD, I think, is even more of a fine line per se than psilocybin. So I've heard Dr. Fadiman talk about how 10 micrograms is considered a microdose. I've also heard him reference in literature that Albert Hoffman used to believe that 20 micrograms was a microdose. So it all depends on the unique individual. And that's why, especially with the psilocybin and the LSD, you have to start low and go slow and really build it up over time, because it's going to be different for everyone, right? And sometimes you got to get that mini to medium dose, right? And you got to take a little bit too much to know that you have to dial it back and that you need to take just a little bit less. And that's when you know, when you have that rise of energy or those uncomfortable feelings, you know, okay, I've taken too much. This is not a microdose. And then, hey, if you ever want to take that dose again to go to a museum or to a concert or somewhere safe, then you know your dosage. And I think that that's what's so important with psychedelics and people is people should go out, they should get a jewelry scale, they should get their calculator and their pencil, they should get it dialed in, and they should really figure out down to the 10th of a gram exactly what substance works for them and what dose.
Absolutely. And also just highlighting on the importance of taking days off in this experience. Some people think, well, this is working for me. Can I take it every day? And what are your thoughts on different protocols that individuals can be using?
Well, tolerance is the real deal. And I think that that's what's the beauty in these sacred medicines and the sacred chemical of LSD is that tolerance will build up. Like you can't take a large dose of LSD every day and have it continue to work the way that it worked on the same day. There is the same kind of intelligence, the fungal intelligence with psilocybin. If you try to abuse it, if you try to take too much, it's going to take you down a very difficult road. If you try to take it too much too often, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to be as impactful. So again, there is this built-in intelligence and there's built-in tolerance. So if people microdose 7 days a week, then they're eventually going to lose the strength of the medicine. So there are a lot of different protocols out there. I see somebody talking about 5 on, 2 off, 1 on, 2 off, the Microdosing Institute protocol of day on, day off. And that's where I think, again, just like substances and dosages, you have to be a civilian scientist when it comes to protocols. And you have to try every protocol, right? Try Dr. Fadiman's protocol, the research protocol of 1 day on, 2 days off. And what's the whole idea of his protocol? It's that you take it on the first day. The second day, you're getting the 48-hour effect, the afterglow. You're still benefiting from the microdose. And then on the third day off, you're back to baseline and sober, which is where you started on day 1. So you can have a full day so that, again, when you microdose, you're able to notice the difference. That's the Fadiman protocol. Now, that protocol is not for everybody, right? If somebody's dealing with addiction or heavy depression, they're probably going to need to microdose more, right? They might need the Stamets protocol of 5 days on, 2 off, right? And I think that that's the idea of 5 days on of building the mushrooms into your system. And then those 2 days off, you're still getting afterglow and you're still getting benefits. And so I've personally been doing that 5 days on, 2 days off with my last 2 weeks of protocol. And I found that to be a really great protocol as well. And I've even timed it where my days off are the weekend. And I'm actually able to be fully functional throughout Monday through Friday as well. So lots of different protocols. The Microdosing Institute protocol, which is a great protocol. This is the day on, day off protocol. And this is more so for people that maybe don't want to take that second sober day off in the Fadiman protocol, or they want to have the experience of the microdose more often, or better yet, they're dealing with some real mental health issues and they could use the opportunity to use the medicine twice as much. So the Microdosing Institute day on, day off protocol is an amazing protocol. The Stamets protocol is not only 5 days on, 2 off, but it's also 4 days on, 3 off. Those
Yep.
are two separate protocols, both called the Stamets protocol. So you can choose which one of those protocols. Maybe one week it's 5-2, maybe the next week it's 4-3. What I find with myself after 3 years of microdosing and with most of my clients is that after we begin with one of these protocols, they begin to become intuitive and kind of come up with their own protocol. They decide, which day they're going to take it, which day they're not, and they design their own protocol. So it's not necessarily just these three protocols. You can really make it up any way you want as long as you're not doing it 7 days a week, 31 days a month.
I think that's what makes it so beautiful. And just to compare it to what our society is used to with pharmaceutical drugs, we're used to taking something every single day and feeling like we're told that we have to take that for the rest of our lives, and that, we have to be reliant on this substance. And what microdosing allows for is like bringing us back to that personal empowerment where we get to choose how often are we using this, what is actually working for our bodies, and taking those days off to really integrate the medicine, because it does continue to work even when you're not in that microdose state. You'll notice that the days off, you can still receive benefits, and that integration process is embodying the realizations that and the messages that we get from that microdosing experience, and integrating it into our ordinary lives. And we actually just made a post about that today, about integrating psychedelics. And it's not only limited to larger psychedelic experiences. Microdosing also requires that integration process to really reflect. And journaling can be such an important way to reflect on the experience. Like, how was my mood today? How was my sleep? How was my anger level? How was my relationships in my family and my life and the people that I live with? And, how did I interface with the world around me? And am I noticing any changes? Even the smallest thing can be the most helpful and transformative things in our lives. I know for myself personally, coming from a background of addiction, sometimes I look for like these really big, the earthquake changes in my life. And like, that has to be what is changed to me. And I'm realizing that subtlety and that softness is also a place where the real change and benefits can happen in our lives. I see someone in the chat said, microdosing has helped me get over alcohol and drug addiction. Psychedelics have really helped me get on top of my bipolar disorder. Wow, that's huge. I mean, the fact that I just want to honor you, psychedelic entity, for your experience and the journey that you've been on. I'm sure it was definitely not an overnight experience that you went through to get over drug and alcohol addiction. And thank you for doing that work on yourself. You are an inspiration to many people, and we hope that you continue to join us in our circles. We offer a psychedelic recovery group specifically for individuals that use psychedelics to overcome addiction. And we also welcome you to come to the Microdosing Support Network. Share your story. You have no idea how many people around you can inspire just through your own personal experience, and we can change the world in that way. Speaking of bipolar disorder, Adam, can you speak to a little bit about, like, are people using microdosing for bipolar disorder, for different mental illnesses? And is there any risk in that? And what has your experience been in that realm helping people?
Well, I want to be really clear that I'm not an expert in that realm. I'm not a doctor by any means, So what I've seen, and I don't have any, well, I have one personal experience with somebody with bipolar. And what I would say is, for mental health conditions, that I really think microdosing is going to be such an amazing tool to help people. A lot of people in large dose psychedelic studies stay away from people that have conditions like bipolar or multiple personality disorders, or people who hear voices per se are not going to be brought into these kind of studies, right? Because people are going to worry that something might go wrong and the numbers won't be right for their study. But Dr. Fadiman tells an amazing story about receiving a letter from somebody who had multiple personality disorder and had multiple voices going on in their head. And they actually microdosed. And what they reported was, for the first time in their life, those voices were nice to them. So what I think we really need to do is we really need to explore safely with people with mental health disorders the use of microdosing connected to a therapist and an integration coach and that type of thing. I think there's amazing benefits for mental health, specifically in microdosing psilocybin for people. So more than anything, I look forward to people being able to do clinical trials so that the people that run things believe it's safe. You know, I heard an amazing quote, I think from the Sabina Project, which is the ancestors did the research, which I think is such an amazing, amazing quote. With that said, I think this is going to be the biggest breakthrough tool in psychotherapy and mental health.
I completely agree. And I think we're really on groundbreaking material. And what's so exciting is that we're discovering it together and just discovering it with the community. And we just back to the importance of everyone's experience in that citizen science. Take your experience and put it on the altar and share it with other people. So many people can benefit from each other's experiences. And since there isn't that as much psychedelic research going on with microdosing, we are focusing on that citizen science research.
Yeah, and I see Robert Charles Solomon saying that macrodosing cured my bipolar depression without any need. Psilocybin saved my life. And that's the same story for me. Psilocybin saved my life. You know, I was walking around, I was alive, but I was a pretty miserable being. Psilocybin is this amazing tool that really shows people how to love themselves, how to forgive themselves, how to look at their trauma differently, how to rewire their brain, how to be excited about life, how to move on from the past. So more and more each day, I'm hearing from people who are having these same experiences. And how cool that this fungus, this mushroom that grows all over the world and can't be stopped, is something that actually is truly helping to heal people and ultimately this planet.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, bringing us back to our indigenous roots and back to our connection with nature. There is such a separation between us and nature, and I believe that separation is purely an illusion. I see a question here. Someone asked, where can we get some LSD? This is a question that we get all the time. You know, all this information is great, but you know, where can I find the substance? And unfortunately, we are still living under a time of prohibition right now, where a lot of these substances are considered Schedule I drugs, which means, according to the federal government, that they have no proven medical efficacy. And we're seeing the laws are changing. They're changing slowly. So many states are decriminalizing. Unfortunately, that still does not allow for an organization like ourselves to be able to supply the substance for people. We do put ourselves out there, and we are taking the risk to supply information, which in itself is a risk. We are getting censored all the time on different social media platforms. So right now, we'd say, as Ian says, like, build a community of trust around you. Be careful out there. It's still not widely as acceptable. And we offer cultivation classes where you can learn how to grow your own medicine. And it's a really empowered way to learn how to access your own healing. And the first step, I believe, is education, because there's so many, these substances are really, they're serious substances, and we have to be careful when using them. And we have to know, especially if a person is on other psychiatric drugs, or if a person comes from a specific background, these medicines can be non-specific amplifiers. And by that, we mean that they can amplify different parts of your experience. They can amplify different drugs that you're on. And it's just really important that we understand what it is that we're doing, that we use them safely, and that we're in a community of support. And Adam, you spoke to, the importance of having a coach or someone that really gets it. And I think that's what's so incredible about the Microdosing Support Network is not only do they have you and Jacobine and Hein there to support them, but also the community is there to foster that mutual support. And we don't have to be alone on our healing paths.
Yeah, it's much better to do it together, right? I think a lot of people's disconnection and depression comes from a lack of community, right? We've been locked off from each other due to COVID for more than a year. And I think the positive of that is we've learned to use Instagram Live and Zoom and all these tools to create a virtual community. And that's what the Microdosing Support Network is. It's a virtual community, and I see somebody asking if classes are free. The support network is free. Obviously, San Francisco Psychedelic Society is a nonprofit, donation-based, so we do ask for donations. We do accept your donations if you want to, but if you can't afford it and you want to come to the support network and you have questions, or you want to share your story, or you want to hear from other people, you can. And I think that that is a huge, huge value today, is offering that kind of information to the people. Obviously, we can't offer you illegal drugs. I want to remind you that mushrooms don't know that they're illegal. And what I always like to suggest to people is, maybe take some time to meditate on it and think about it and talk to these medicines and call them in and really start thinking about calling them in. And then don't be surprised if the person you run into the grocery store at the ramen noodles is the person that ends up being the one that is the safe and reliable connection for you. So take the time to call them in, right? This is a very fast culture where we want everything immediately, right? We hear about microdosing and we want to be able to order it. And we're not quite there yet. If you're in Holland or in the European Union, you can go to, I believe it's microdosinginstitute.com, or I believe it is microdosinginstitute.com, and there are some links there to some smart shops where in the European Union you can actually legally order truffles, which are the mushroom before it pops above the soil into the fruiting body. So there are ways legally in Holland and the European Union to access truffles, but right now it is not legal for anybody to sell LSD or mushrooms truly in most of the world outside of Jamaica or Brazil.
Yep. And we want to really caution people around the online. There's a lot of different online dealers and shops that are on Instagram, and almost about 100% of the time it's a scam. We get messages all the time from people that they get scammed, and it's really important that you stay safe and know exactly who it is that's supplying. Vet them out as much as they're vetting you. This is important, and just recognizing where we're at in the world and where we're at with prohibition, and be careful of online scammers and dealers. So a little bit back to the microdosing support network for people that are curious where that lives. That is found on Zoom, and you can find the link in our bio and on the Psychedelic Society sf.org website, and you can basically just register for the Europe microdosing support network and the US microdosing support network. And once you're registered, you'll get an email with all the links and the Zoom link. You can add it to your calendar so you can attend every other week to this group. So back to microdosing, there's a question around, does the LSD microdose last longer than a mushroom microdose? Adam, can you speak to that around duration of these substances?
Yeah, that's a great question, and kind of the answer I want to kind of evolve, because I think the idea is the time period has to do more with the large doses, right? So when we talk about LSD, a lot of people say anywhere from 10 to 12 hours. When we talk about psilocybin, a lot of people say 4 to 6 hours. I know with microdosing that even in the right dose, I can be energized throughout the day, right? And I also know that when I've taken large doses in ceremonies, that I am actually pretty high until the moment that I pass out and go to sleep. So I think, honestly, the duration of these psychedelics are throughout the course of the entire day. Even when you're microdosing small amounts of psilocybin or LSD, you're getting the therapeutic effects 48 hours later on your day off. So, I think that, again, the dose is unique to everybody.
Absolutely. And sometimes different protocols will work better for certain substances. So it's just up to the person to really give that substance space. Sometimes we get questions from people that ask, can I microdose psilocybin one day and do LSD another day? What are your thoughts, Adam, on switching up substances in the same microdosing protocol?
Yeah, so I heard Dr. Fadiman on the Ben Greenfield podcast the other day, and Ben asked him the same question regarding, Monday you do psilocybin, Tuesday you do LSD, Wednesday you do wachuma. And I think Dr. Fadiman's answer was great. And he said, well, what's the difference between Monday vodka, Tuesday rum, Wednesday tequila? And I think that there's a real sacredness to this medicine, and that you should really space these substances out. Meaning if you want to be a civilian scientist and you want to know the difference between psilocybin and LSD, then I personally think you should separate them completely. Do a month of psilocybin microdosing, then take 2 weeks off of nothing to reset yourself, and then do a month of LSD microdosing. And I think it's important to get a week or two in there of no microdosing before you start that second substance. Now, of course, there's going to be people out there that microdose every day of the week. And what I would bet is after time, the microdosing is not effective. The other thing is we want to not build up a emotional addiction to the substance, right? We don't want people to think that they have to take it every day, because the really beautiful thing about microdosing in the right dose is it has a 48-hour effect. And a lot of time, these days off can be more productive. These days off can be more energized. These days off can be more focused. So I personally would recommend a schedule, or recommend against a schedule that was switching between substances every day, and just take the time to do one subject at a time. You know, who knows how your receptors are reacting to one day of psilocybin and one day of LSD? I definitely don't. So I would say be a civilian scientist, space it out, and don't mix them. And obviously, if there are people that are out there doing that, share your information with us. Let us know what you're finding, what you're doing. But I would say from a research civilian science background, if you're seeing all these improvements and you're mixing the substances, it's going to be tough for us to differentiate which substance is actually helping you. So I think it's important to individualize the substances, keep a journal, mess around with your dosages and your protocols, and then 2 weeks off with nothing before you switch between the substances.
Thanks, Adam. And to that point, I think that's same goes for if you're doing larger doses of other medicines too. If you're microdosing with a certain substance and you want to try like a larger heroic dose, or to do ayahuasca or introduce another medicine, it's definitely helpful to take that at least 2 weeks off to give yourself that space for your brain to recalibrate. And it's also recommended if you are taking other psychiatric drugs, such as antidepressants or mood stabilizers, Adderall, sleeping medication. It can be really tricky when mixing in with psychedelic substances. So we definitely recommend that people do extensive research on what it is that they're taking. There's a website called microdosingpsychedelics.com that has a whole list of contraindications, which we call it. And we encourage people to really be their scientist and be their own researcher. Most likely doctors aren't going to know or have any familiarity with microdosing, know the drug complications, or know how to support people in that process. We get a lot of people saying, my psychiatrist doesn't support this, or I can't talk to my doctor about this. They're, telling me it's really risky and this is not good and that I should just stay on my pharmaceutical. It's important that you do have your doctor's support. And, but sometimes they may not, this may not be in their realm of how they can know how to support you. So it's important that if you are thinking about microdosing, and if it does have a contraindication with a pharmaceutical drug, that you safely come off that drug with your doctor's support, and then start introducing the microdosing, and make sure that you have support on both ends, like bookends of your experience. Let's talk a little bit about safety. Adam, you spoke to earlier around using a scale and the importance of that. And I just want to say welcome to anyone that's new to this live. We're having a discussion around microdosing, and drop your questions down there in the chat so that we can answer them. So someone asked a question around measuring in micrograms. What tools will an individual need to be safe with microdosing?
So obviously, if you're working with psilocybin, you're going to want to probably grind up the fruiting body and then very carefully weigh it on a digital, very small jewelry scale to be able to get down to the 10th and 100th of a gram. I am by no means an expert in how to properly dilute LSD and how to work with LSD safely, so I'm not going to advise you on that. I'm going to say that there's a lot of great tutorials out there online, I'm sure. I know it's the process of diluting down the LSD with, I believe, demineralized water. so that you're diluting the strength, and then when you're dosing, it's going to be more measured into a microdose. I know other people with tabs that will cut small pieces off the tab, and again, that can also be kind of tough to measure out. So if there's anybody out of the 37 people listening that has experience with the dilution of the LSD, they can go ahead and share that in the chat. As far as psilocybin, your best tool is a coffee grinder for grinding up the fruiting bodies, and then a really accurate little digital scale. And I mean, you can get little tiny digital scales at a head shop for, $12, $13 probably. So, treat yourself to that. Treat yourself to not just munching a little bit of a stem or a mushroom, but actually figuring out what that right dosage, and that's the safety. Think of how safe that is for you to take the time to know what's too much and what's too little and what's just right. So again, I think the scale and the coffee grinder for the psilocybin is your greatest tool for creating your own microdoses.
Thank you for that. And as our dear friend, psychonaut Ian, has done some research with psilocybin, it's known now that once you grind it up, it will quickly lose that potency over time, compared to just the whole fruiting body itself. So it's important to know that once you grind it up, that supply should be the first supply to go through, and that it will lose potency. So some people will grind it up for the week or grind it up for the month, and instead of grinding all of it up, because it will lose that potency. And
That's a great point, right? If you've got, let's say, nature provides you this beautiful bag of medicinal mushrooms, you don't want to grind up all of the mushrooms that are going to last you the next couple of weeks or months, right? Because then it's going to start to deteriorate over time. So you keep the majority in fruiting body form, sealed and taken care of properly, and then you're only blending up your capsule for the week or the month, or what you're going to take in the coming days, so that again you don't lose that quality and strength of psilocin and psilocybin.
yeah, and when it comes to storage, there's a lot of different ideologies around how do we store these safely and to preserve its potency. Um, what I've heard is the best storage is, in a dark space, not necessarily in a freezer. That can also change the potency of it. A dark, cool space, and just keeping it in closed doors and in a closed container, or most likely a jar would be best. Do you have any thoughts on how to store these properly?
Yeah, I was talking to a purist just last week that you might know as well, and they were saying that vacuum seal, once it's thoroughly cracker dry, that vacuum sealing it is probably the best way to long-term store it. I know storing it in a jar is great, but the really important thing, and I see Ian just put in cracker dry, so I know I'm learning the terminology. Cracker dry, I'm sure you can store it once it's cracker dry in a ball jar or other storage devices that people use for cannabis. Again, Ian is reminding, avoid light exposure. Obviously, you don't want to leave your mushrooms in the sunlight or anything like that. So, probably a cool, dark place. But I think the really key important part is really making sure that these mushrooms that nature provided for you are thoroughly dry, are cracker dry, because you don't want any mold or fungus or anything that going on like that, because that can be detrimental to your health.
I can speak from personal experience from mold toxicity. Mold toxicity is so awful and really, really challenging on the physical body. It is nothing to be messed with. And just having safety with these substances and how we're storing them, how we're using them in all different areas is super important to maintaining our own physical health. I
And I,
want
and
to
I, and I think that starts with reverence, right? You have to remember when handling these mushrooms that these are sacred teachers, right? Which means, make this a meditation practice of storing them and making sure that they're dry, and weighing them out and capsulizing your mushroom doses or your microdoses for the week. So I think it's important to just remember how sacred these tools are, and that this isn't a recreational drug for us to take and go to the Leonard Skinner concert, that this is more a tool that even in these extremely small doses, I think is going to be the best antidepressant ever created. And hey, it's been around since the beginning of time. So I would think that Mother Nature and the earth knows exactly what they're doing. And I would think that the entourage effect of all the different things going on in the organic fungal matter is why it's so powerful and so healing for people.
And as we say here, we're developing a relationship with these substances, and looking at this process, this entire process is creating a prayer for yourself. Develop that relationship with the substance even before you take it. Put it on your altar, speak to it, ask it what you would like from it. Bless your medicine, bless those prayers, and know that the medicine is not doing the work for you. It is a tool, and you are here to heal yourself. And to do that, you're the one doing the work. I think that's really important, because a lot of people, including myself in the past, I've relied on substances and thought I was powerless, and then I was looking outside of myself for everything to do the work for me. And what microdosing and psychedelics have taught me is, like, ultimately we are the medicine, we are our own healers, and these substances are just tools to help us unlock parts of ourselves. They're here to show us what's already inside of us, and we don't have to be reliant on them, but they are definitely companions in this journey of life.
And I think more than anything, we really need to come up with a holiday or a way that we really honor Marie Sabina and the woman that really brought psilocybin back to the Western world and really gave up her comfort and her life and her ability to live in her village by sharing psilocybin with our Gordon Wasson and him bringing it back to the world in the Life magazine articles. So I would really say the place to start with psilocybin is do your research on Marie Sabina and read her story, and go to YouTube. There's a really old documentary that was made on her with very little sound quality, but just amazing to start with her and learn about these indigenous healers that have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, right? Because this is something that started in these indigenous communities. So I think that's where you got to start with psilocybin. You got to start with the beginning and how did it come out on the scene. And I think if you're into LSD and it's a chemical that moves you and that helps you, that you need to start back at the beginning with Albert Hoffman, how he synthesized it, and the story, and Bicycle Day, and him riding home his bike tripping balls, and just the amazing history of these sacred plants. Become a student of them. And again, if these aren't things that you can access and you start calling them in and then you start reading books on them and becoming a student. I was on an airplane one time reading Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, and you don't know how many people I became connected with just from the book I was reading. So again, it's out there, people. You have to call it in, but start at the beginning and maybe add a picture of Marie Sabina to your altar, because I think she's really a special individual, and we need to give her her props and respect.
I love that, Adam. I love starting with, going back to the roots of this. This is not new. We're just reinstating them for the public at this time. I just want to say a big gratitude to everyone that's been here with us today. Like, thank you guys so much for tuning into this with us and sticking around with us and being so active in the chat, active in our community. We really appreciate you, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. This is for you. This is you. Our community makes us what we are, and we just want to welcome you to get involved in us in a deeper way. Attend our support groups, attend our other events, join the microdosing movement. We're going to be launching the course again in the next few months, and we want to welcome all of you to be a part of that with us. Share your story with us. We care about your experience. We want to support you. We're here for you. And we're always accepting new ways to get involved. And if you deeply have like an offering that you want to share with the Psychedelic Society, reach out to us. We want to know you, and share this live with anyone that might be interested in this. Let's talk a little bit, Adam. Do you have a little bit more time here?
Yeah, we talked earlier about a cutoff time. I'm happy to extend it with as many questions as we got. There's been a great flow and a lot of great response. So let's keep it going.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time, Adam, and just a deep bow of gratitude for everyone that's a part of this conversation today. Thank you so much. And if you missed the beginning, we're going to be posting this after we're done, so feel free to check out the beginning where we cover some of the protocols and different dosaging and applications, ways that people are using this. And you can share the live by that arrow button, and you can just send it to your friends and invite them to join us in this conversation. many people do use microdosing stacking. Adam, can you speak a little bit to what stacking means and some of the ways that people are stacking microdosing?
This is a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. I think stacking is one of the most exciting things about microdosing. And stacking is the idea of taking microdosing, psilocybin per se, and then combining it with other substance. So right now, the most popular stack for microdosing on the planet is the Stamets stack, right? And so Paul Stamets was the first person to come up with the idea to stack lion's mane mushrooms, which is a functional mushroom that creates neurogenesis and improves neuroplasticity, with psilocybin along with niacin. The idea in his stack is that lion's mane plus psilocybin, 2 plus 2 equals 1,000. Putting those together basically makes them both more effective. And then the niacin is a flush or a way for you to take the medicine and bring it all the way out to your fingertips and the tips of your toes and just basically spread it better throughout the body. So that's the most important stack out there right now. My company, Flow State Micro, has another stack. I am really about the stacking of microdosing in athletics and sports. I think exercise and body movement is so important. So in my microdose stack, we're stacking chaga, which is amazing for your immunity, cordyceps, which is amazing for increased stamina and energy throughout the day, as well as for athletics, maitake for immunity, and then lion's mane. So again, I really do think Paul Stamets is onto something really, really smart with lion's mane and psilocybin. So those are the stacks. Now, Flow State stack, what I really want to be known for is the combination of exercise with microdosing. I think that exercise and microdosing is imperative to people getting through depression, is imperative through people getting through addiction, is imperative through people overall just being healthy. And when you stack something like exercise, you can stack meditation, you can stack cold water immersion, you can stack music. I mean, there's so many things that you can combine with microdosing. And we don't have clinical trials. It's all anecdotal. It's all our personal experience. But what we're finding is the combination of multiple things with the psilocybin is extremely beneficial. And I think the fascinating thing out there is everybody out there can develop their own stack. Maybe they do really well with ginkgo biloba, or maybe they do really well with certain other herbs, and they can create their own microdosing stack. So I think definitely stacking, the biggest one is the Stamets protocol. Again, Flow State has a protocol, a stack. I'm sure there are other stacks out there. And again, you can create your own stack. Now, the other way that you can look at stacking in microdosing besides combining mushrooms or herbs and mushrooms is, again, what experience are you stacking with microdosing? There's the stacking of microdosing and music. Again, Flow State, with whom I'm coaching, everybody has to take on an exercise program, even if they haven't exercised in 30 years. And it's life-changing for people. So for people who are out there listening, what are you stacking with microdosing, right? What are some of the things that you love to do with microdosing? A lot of the things that I hear are yoga is increased with microdosing. Breath work is increased with microdosing. All kinds of amazing stuff can go with microdosing.
And as you have said, Adam, one of the side effects of microdosing is self-love. I love to stack microdosing with self-love, self-care, doing a morning ritual for myself, giving myself the space before I jump right into my emails or social media, and really doing exercise in the morning, meditation, journaling, stacking it with self-love practices, mantras, telling myself I love myself, affirmations, and using that microdosing experience to stack with, as you're saying, other different ways to add on to the experience. Even community can be a great stack. You can stack microdosing with community, with support, with positive practices for yourself. And yeah, I'd love to hear some of the other ways that people are stacking microdosing. So let us know in the chat there. Sometimes people will microdose with THC, which can be a non-specific amplifier. Adam, can you speak to a little bit about using THC while microdosing?
Yes. So, you have to be aware that using cannabis while microdosing cannabis can actually amplify the microdose. So I think that cannabis has an amplification property when it comes to psilocybin. I know that Terrence McKenna would talk about when he would take a large dose or the hero's journey, he actually would roll 3 joints and he would start the process with a joint. He would smoke one in the middle and then he would close the ceremony with cannabis as well at the end. So I do think that cannabis has the ability to amplify the microdose. Can you successfully use cannabis and microdose? Absolutely. There's millions of people that use cannabis and microdosing. I know for myself as well that microdosing has allowed me to smoke less cannabis. So it can work either way. But for me to say that one shouldn't, be able to combine cannabis and microdosing, I can't say that. I've used it, I've combined it personally. I think they work well together, but you have to be aware if you're a beginner microdosing that cannabis can amplify the psilocybin or LSD or Wachuma or whatever you're potentially microdosing. And can you microdose cannabis? Absolutely, you can microdose cannabis, which is just using a very, very small amount of THC to get your desired effects.
Yep. And I've heard that microdosing iboga with THC, it can definitely enhance the iboga quite a bit. So just being mindful of these amplifications and what other people's experiences have had. I love the microdosing guru said, I use microdosing to integrate some of the insights that I got during a macro experiences. Yes, we've heard that frequently from people, and I love that you can have a macro experience and then microdosing can kind of bring back some of the recall from that experience and help you further integrate that experience. But again, we do also recognize what we were speaking to before about giving ourselves that space between the micro and the macro experience, and just making sure that we're giving ourselves space to fully integrate the experience and allow for all the teachings and the physiological effects of the medicine to give itself that time to fully move through our bodies, move through our consciousness. And there's a lot of talk in the community around kind of like hopping from one psychedelic substances to another, or using microdosing as a crutch or using it too frequently. Sometimes it can be habit forming. I saw a question earlier around ketamine, like if people are microdosing for ketamine. Some people do microdose ketamine and it can be helpful for chronic pain, for depression, but it is another one that's tricky because sometimes that can become a habit forming experience with people. And just to be mindful of, having this be a ritual, be a prayer, and really listening to the medicine and respecting it and giving us, our brains, that time, that space, and knowing that this is not a substance that we're just trying to rely on, and knowing that we're powerful, and we are more powerful over these substances. And can you speak to a little bit about anything you've heard around microdosing with ketamine?
You know what? I haven't heard a ton about microdosing with ketamine. And what I'd say is, again, I am not an expert. And all of these medicines and substances, whether it's plant medicine or synthetic, it's unique to the individual. I know there are tons of people that ketamine has saved their life. So I am sure that you can microdose ketamine and it can help people with mood, potentially. I don't have any personal experience with knowing anyone that's microdosing ketamine. People ask about microdosing MDMA. I've heard Dr. Fadiman answer that question by saying that MDMA is not a classic psychedelic and that you can't microdose MDMA because it's a substance that you need to take a certain amount of to get the desired effects of the actual substance. So certain substances, I don't really know if you can. If it gives people ease, if it helps people and it's non-addictive, and they're not taking it 7 days a week, who am I to say that one person can microdose one thing or not the other? So I'm sure that people microdose ketamine and have success from that as well.
Absolutely. I just going through the chat right now. Robert said, macrodosing cured my bipolar depression without any need for upkeep. Psilocybin saved my life. Just want to honor you and your journey. And we're here to hear all the stories, how these medicines have helped you, how it's been challenging for you. And this goes for anything. Someone earlier said that they they were hoping for creativity, and they tried 2.5 months at point 0.4, never noticed anything, and then they doubled it, and they still haven't felt anything. Adam, how frequently do you see people that are microdosing that don't necessarily feel it, and is that experience typical, and what can people do if they don't necessarily feel it besides having to increase the dosage?
Yeah, the longer I do this, the more that I see that this is typical. It's obviously with a minority of people, but there is a small amount of people out there that have an extremely strong tolerance. And there's a lot of factors that it could have to do with. It could have to do with if they're on a bunch of prescription medication. It could have to do with the amount of pathways in their brain, the amount of pathways in their gut. It could have to do with a combination of pathways and body weight. And it could just have to do with a sensitivity and a person's overall sensitivity to a substance. So if I'm working with a client and they're not feeling something from a smaller microdose to begin with, then I ask them questions like, well, what's your experience with other substance? How much of a cannabis edible do you have to eat until you feel it? Or how many beers do you have to drink? And usually what I see across the board is if somebody needs more of an edible, that they're probably going to need more of the psilocybin to get that same effect, you know? So that's what I would suggest is, you know, and maybe for some people, it just doesn't work. I don't know. I'm sure there are a small amount of people out there that can eat a ton of one variety of psychedelic mushroom and it just doesn't do anything to them. And, you know, I'm not sure what to say about that. I did see a question earlier about which varieties of mushrooms to microdose. I would say you want to stay with species that are moderate to mild, not super strong. You know, most people are not microdosing the penis envy variety per se, or something like that. But again, you know, you can microdose so many different substances.
Someone in the chat said, every time I like something on here, I get a lot of follow requests from those who sell. And I just want to apologize for that. You know, that seems to be a common experience that people are having, that they're getting followed by a lot of different drug dealers online. And because we're still under prohibition and there isn't a way to legally access these substances, at least in the United States, beware of these scammers that are online. Generally, they are not selling anything. They're just trying to scam people. We haven't really heard any good experiences from that. And we practice harm reduction here at the Psychedelic Society. So just what you can do is you can report these accounts, and please report these accounts, and just know that that is not acceptable behavior. And if we had a way to protect our community from all that, we would, but it seems to be a common experience that people are getting followed by a bunch of these different accounts of people that sell, and none of these suppliers are legal, and just to be careful around you know, interfacing with them. Let's take just a couple more questions, and I have to pop off here. Someone's asking about LSD versus mushrooms. Once we post this in a couple of minutes, we just welcome you to check out the earlier conversation we had, that we did go over that. And let's see. What do you recommend for, I see a question around microdosing meth. That's definitely not necessarily in our bandwidth. We're not here to stigmatize any substances, and we're not here to promote the use of psychedelics, but we are here to support people and provide harm reduction and support. We don't commonly, I can speak for myself, I don't commonly know what we recommend for microdosing meth. I do have a lot of friends that have had substance abuse challenges with meth, and that has done a significant challenge on the brain, and has been really hard. But you know, we're here to support you wherever you're at in your journey, and we're not necessarily going to give protocol advice on methamphetamine, but if methamphetamine is something that you are currently using and struggling with, we encourage you to come to our psychedelic recovery group and speak around that. And what we are here to do is to share around the psychedelic substances and how they're helping people, and to speak to you know, rebuilding that relationships with ourselves and relationship with nature, and making sure that we're staying safe and we're going down a path that is serving us and helping us. Let's see.
And I just wanted to say that Psychedelic Entity said alcohol, prescription pills, hard drugs can all stop psychedelics from doing the job they are meant to do. And that's an absolute great point. You know, you can't expect to microdose psilocybin and then come home and have a bunch of beers and still have the same kind of insight and experience that you might if you were abstaining for alcohol potentially from the month that you were doing the experience. Prescription pills obviously could dull the experience, change the experience, make it different. And then obviously the combination of hard drugs is going to make everything different. So that's a great point, Psychedelic Entity. I just wanted to thank you for sharing that and let you know that I saw it.
Thank you, Adam. And the group, the Microdosing Support Network, is offered twice a month, both in the USA and in Europe. Adam, as we come to a close here, do you want to share a little bit about the Microdosing Support Network and the work you're doing with the Psychedelic Society?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, for those of you that weren't on earlier, we have microdosing support group tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's through Zoom. I believe you can find that through the San Francisco Psychedelic Society Facebook, probably their website as well. I'm sure Danielle will fill you in on exactly how to find us after that. But tomorrow, 4 p.m., we're going to be running as many people as show up through question and answer session, community support. You can share your experiences. More than anything, I like to be quiet and let people share. And we've just begun a really amazing community with a lot of really amazing people. And I hope you all can make it to see us tomorrow in that microdosing support network.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for your service to our Psychedelic Society and to humanity as a whole. We see some beautiful things that people are saying that they're using yoga, meditation, binaural beats to stack. And this live will be posted right after we finish it up for your viewing. And we would just welcome everyone to continue to be a part of our community. Thank you to everyone for being here today. Thank you for being so active and engaging on all of our social media posts. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your experience. And hopefully we'll be launching some more citizen science research with our community so that people can put their experiences on the altar and really help push this forward. Your experience matters, and we are learning from you just as you're learning from us.
Awesome. Hey, and I just want to add at the end that someone called me out and they were absolutely right. I did not invent exercise and microdosing. That is not anything I'd ever try and trademark or patent. All I'm saying is that with my coaching clientele, a lot of them do not exercise, okay? Modern society, people are sedentary. We sit around a lot. So all I'm saying is I think there's a direct link between energy, mood increase when you stack exercise with microdosing. So thank you all. I hope you all come to the support network tomorrow. Danielle, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. And I wish we could answer all the questions here. If you had a specific question that didn't get answered, feel free to DM us or drop it in the live once I post it. There was a question around recommending a specific diet. There aren't any specific diets that go along with microdosing, but many people do report once microdosing that they feel a need to, eat more greens and be more healthy, and they're feeling more attracted to eating more nature and being more conscious with their diets. And I just think this whole process that we're going to is just, expanding our consciousness, and whatever form that takes in your life. If that's expanding it in terms of what you're putting in your body, substance wise, food wise, media wise, friend wise, thoughts wise, it's all just consciousness. And we encourage everyone to just be mindful of what they're putting in their bodies, and integrating how is it serving you and helping you. And if it's not, then like an onion, we can let that shit go and peel those layers. All right, Adam, any other words?
No, I would just say in regards to the food and the diet that you should be able to have your normal diet. Hopefully it's healthy and it's made up of whole foods and vegetables. You should be able to have your normal diet when you microdose. And then that lends to one more last question, which is, should I microdose on an empty stomach? And what I would say is this: you should microdose how you normally go through your daily life. If you eat breakfast, you should microdose with breakfast. If you're somebody like myself that intermittent fasts, then you're going to microdose in the morning and not take food till the afternoon. So again, experiment. Be civilian scientists. Try a day where you don't eat and you take it on an empty stomach. What can happen is it can amplify the psilocybin more and maybe make it a little less subperceptual. So anytime you find yourself in a place where it starts to feel a little bit more subperceptual, I always suggest people eating some food, drinking some water, something like that to maybe help themselves get a little bit under control. But in regards to your diet, again, you should be able to eat your normal diet with whatever you're microdosing.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Adam, so much for being here with me for this past hour, being a part of our community. You're just like such a wealth of knowledge, and we so appreciate you. And thank you to everyone that's been here with us today. Much love, everyone.